Yo, what's going on, guys? Cult of Mush back at it with another video, a $500 gaming PC build. Let's get right into this with the CPU of the build. I went with the AMD Athlon X4 760K 3.8 GHz quad-core CPU. Now, this is a really good CPU for $74 right now. We're not going with an i3 or even an FX 4300 because those are a tad bit more expensive and it won't allow you to get a really nice graphics card in a budget build like this. But the Athlon X4 is still a really nice CPU. It's quad-core, which quad-core is something that's becoming more and more essential in gaming. Games like Far Cry 4 and Dragon Age 3 for a while didn't even run on dual-core CPUs. I believe they released a fix now, but those games at first didn't even run on dual-core CPUs. So picking up a quad-core CPU definitely isn't a bad idea, and for $74, this makes a lot more sense than getting a Pentium, which is only like $15 cheaper. Spend an extra $15 and you're gonna get a very nice CPU. The only downside of this CPU is it does tend to get a little hot and it runs at 100 watts, which is a little bit higher than typical CPUs, but still, it's worth it for the price, and you can get a decent CPU cooler for like 20 bucks if you want to, like the Hybrid 212 Evo or something like that, and that should be just good, but that's not essential, and this CPU for $74 is a definite good fit in the build. For the motherboard, I went with the ASRock FM2A88X Extreme 4 motherboard. This is an awesome motherboard for only $61 right now. It has 4 RAM slots, DDR3 up to 2600 MHz. It supports up to 64 gigabytes of RAM and is just loaded with features. It's got onboard USB 3, SATA 6, just a lot of features on a very cheap motherboard. Highly recommended. And ASRock has a really good warranty policy as well. In my opinion, they're one of the more underrated set of motherboards, but this motherboard is just awesome. Loaded with features, like I said. For a $61 motherboard, you don't typically see a motherboard like this that's just completely loaded, and just a great motherboard for the price, and like I said, loaded with features. For memory, I went with G.Skill Ripjaw Series 8GB, 240GB sticks running at DDR3 1600 MHz. It's 8GB of RAM, it's $60, that's fairly cheap, and it's a G.Skill Ripjaws, which is a very good brand of RAM, 1600 MHz, which is really nice. Like I said, the motherboard does have 4 RAM slots, so in the future, if you do want to go for a 16GB configuration, that option is open. All you'll have to do is buy another kit of this RAM, put it in, and you'll be good to go. Right now, though, 16GB just really doesn't make a lot of sense in a budget build like this, so getting 8GB is definitely the more viable option. Especially for only $60 right now, this is just a great value for 8GB of RAM. 8GB of RAM 6 months to 12 months ago was actually a lot more expensive. I was seeing 8GB of RAM go for $70, $80, $90 even, so it's real nice to see that RAM prices are coming down a little bit. For storage, I went with the Western Digital Caviar Blue 1TB. It's a 1TB hard drive for $50 right now, really solid. It's a Caviar Blue, which is a really nice hard drive. Not much more to say. A terabyte of storage is a decent amount. Just to let you guys know, 2TB and 3TB drives are pretty cheap nowadays. 2TB are about $80. 3TB, I've seen them as low as $100, $110. So if you do want to get some more storage, that option is open. But for most people, I think a terabyte is pretty good. Obviously, no SSD on this build just doesn't make a lot of sense on a $500 build. And a Caviar Blue did the job at $50. So I think you guys are going to like that a lot. For the video card, I went with the Asus GeForce GTX 760 2GB video card. This is a really solid video card for only $170 right now. Really good price for a very good video card from NVIDIA. The GTX 760 is very good for gaming at 1080p, or if you game at 1600 by 900, even better. But at 1080p, you're going to be able to get really good settings out of games like Battlefield 4, Witcher 2, the upcoming Witcher 3. Games like that, higher end games, you're not going to be able to max out all of them and get 60 FPS, but if you turn it down to high or just tinker around with the settings a little bit, you're going to be able to play with really acceptable settings and really good frame rates. And for $170, this seemed like a really good fit in the build. Like I said, you're going to be playing most games at 1080p and with really good settings and really good frame rate, so this just made a lot of sense in the build. For the power supply, I went with the EVGA 600W 80 plus bronze certified power supply, $35. This is going to power the build no problem. The motherboard can't go for an SLI configuration anyway, so it just makes a lot more sense to just get the 600W. Going to power the build no problem. The GTX 760 is pretty power efficient, and even though the AMD CPU does use 100 watts, there's no way, even at max TDP, that this power supply is even going to use 500 watts. So a 600 watt power supply for $35 seemed like a really good value in this build. Finally, for the case, I went with the Corsair 200R ATX mid-tower case. One of the best cases on the market right now for the price, $40. I've used this in a ton of my builds. Even the ones that are $800 or $900, I went with the 200R because it's just a very high quality case for a very cheap price of $40. Just a great case. You know, the exterior is pretty basic, but the interior is what matters, and it definitely gets the job done. A lot of good ventilation and a lot of room for upgradability. Just an awesome case for $40. Highly recommended. Thanks for watching this video, guys. Remember, hit that subscribe button, like this video, comment down below, and if you have a request for a future video, as always, leave it in the comment down below. I'm always open to new suggestions, and I will talk to you all later. Peace out.